Welcome everyone to our event this evening, Trauma Resilience, our presentation and interview with Martin Weaver and Felicity Biggart. A very warm welcome to you, Martin and Felicity.
Thank you. Hello, John.
Hello, John.
It's lovely to have you both here today. And a warm welcome to everyone who's joining us online. It's great to have you with us on such a sunny evening. Thank you for coming in from the barbecues. We really appreciate that. And we can see there's some action in the chat room already. So if anyone's having difficulty getting in the chat room, Sandra will pop her email address in there. If you just click on it, Saz can help you get in the chat room, and we'd love to have your questions and comments. Tonight's going to be a little bit different from our usual format. Martin and Felicity have prepared a PowerPoint presentation for us. So we're really looking forward to that. So we're going to hear from you both for about half an hour, and then some questions from the chat room, I guess, in terms of what we've heard. So before we get to that, though, maybe I could start by asking you both where you're located today. That would be a nice start there.
Well, we're in sunny West Chiswick, or West London in Chiswick. So it's about 27, 28 today. So it's very, very nice and warm.
You're nice and cosy over there, yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you both being available on such a lovely evening as well. And so you both run a company called Trauma Resilience Training, and have slightly different backgrounds. Maybe I could ask you both a little bit about your professional journey up to here, please.
Do you want to start, Felicity?
Yes, okay. I'd love to start. I have been working in the field of bereavement for the past 10 years. I'm a trained psychotherapist, and I also have a degree in psychology. In the last 7 years, I moved into the field of trauma and working with people affected by primarily the 7th of July, the London bombings. So I worked for the 7th of July Assistance Centre, an organisation set up and funded by the government in response to the London bombings in 2005. Through that work, I also then came to work with quite a few other terrorist incidents from around the world. I worked with survivors from the Bali bombings of 2002, to the tsunami in 2004, Sharm el-Sheikh in 2005, and Dahab bombings. Dahab is just up the coast from Sharm el-Sheikh, another little dive town, and 3 bombs went off there in 2006. So any of the British citizens who were affected by any of these events were able to come and access the service set up by the government in London. And I provided both one-to-one therapy and group support to the survivors.
Thank you, Felicity. Really appreciate that background. It sounds like some really important and challenging work there. Yeah. Martin, how about you?
Well, it's I'm never quite sure how far to go back when people ask me this question, but I took the first call on the Terence Higgins Trust AIDS helpline on February the 14th, 1984, which I look back on now and see as a kind of trauma in slow motion process. And then I went to work in the NHS as a manager for drug and alcohol services, as well as HIV and AIDS services, and that kind of broadened out. And then when I left the NHS to work as a psychotherapist, I got my UKCP, United Kingdom Council for Psychotherapy, accreditation in 2000. And then in 2002, I got my training as a supervisor from the University of Birmingham. And then I was working for a place called Bereavement Services for Hounslow as a supervisor for counsellors working in bereavement. And that got me a connection to the July the 7th Assistance Centre. So that I helped there with training and other supervision issues as well for the counsellors there, dealing with not just the trauma, not just the terrorist activities rather, but also natural disasters. And then, as Felicity will begin to say in a few minutes, we've produced this from the work and experience we had with those supervisees and with those counsellors.
Yeah, well, thank you. It sounds like you've both done some very extensive work around trauma, and it's informed the training programme that you put together.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Well, I guess this is the bit where you're going to speak to the PowerPoint.
through the work that Martin and I have done, we came also to represent a charity called Survivors of Terrorism. And I attended several international forums where we looked at future action and preparation and how one might set up centres in response after an event at a governmental level. Martin and I then began to wonder whether we could set up something for people who are at an increased risk of exposure. I also provided the counselling and support to the July the 7th inquests that went on for quite a few months last year, finishing in May 2011. And quite a few of the people who were profoundly affected were the first responders who had to go down and do their job. They were extremely well trained to do their job. They performed magnificently on the day, but they weren't prepared for the quite devastating psychological effects of dealing with such really disturbing sights, sounds, smells, and sadness that they encountered on that day. So we began to wonder whether we could put together a training program that might help such people, health professionals who work in the field, who are dealing with people who might be dealing with, as I was, a lot of people affected by trauma coming to them. So for health professionals and people who know that they are going to be at increased risk of dealing with difficult circumstances. For example, Transport for London workers have to deal with incidents on the line that can be quite disturbing. So how could we put together some form of psychological preparation in advance? This is, we feel, a major paradigm shift from retrospective care once people flag up as needing help post an event. So we began to look at how we could put something into being so people could learn before they were in a distressed state, which is, of course, the most beneficial way of learning something, when you're relaxed and calm and prepare yourself. As we've put together this training, we decided it would be best to put it together in such a way and have it looked at by a professional body. So our training has been endorsed by the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy. Our introductory training has been. And in doing that, we had to define the core elements of what we were providing. So here we have on slide 1 the 3 core elements. Underpinning it all, and first and foremost, is education. You need to understand the basic psychological and physiological responses to trauma. What is normal, what you're feeling, and how you're responding after an event, so that you can understand and dialogue with your body and not be profoundly disturbed by some of the normal presenting features. Within this category, and underpinning our psychological tools that we're going to talk about in a minute, is the understanding of the balance between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system kicks off in the limbic system, and it's what we know as the fight-flight response. In a normal response, it's a healthy process that enables us to survive. So when it kicks off, it produces the stress cortisols and adrenaline that give rise to the tremendous feats we hear of incredible strength and sometimes tunnel vision, time distortion. All sorts of things happen to our body as a result of the chemical release. In a normal situation, what we call a negative feedback loop, the trauma happens and it's non-specific trigger. So it could be a